So we are move on to the next section is our symposium section, and we are going to have 4 speakers in these sections. The first one is the doctoral candidate, Ms. Barbara Berman from Kenya. Okay, and Barbara received her bachelor degree in medicine and the surgery from Moi University. Then she received her master's in public health through the laureate online education provided by University of Liverpool. Now she's the doctoral student in public health, Maseno University, working on the research of tuberculosis sclerosis, TB control in Kisumu County in Kenya. So today she's going to share what is the issues need to be considered when implementing the standardized TB contact investigation in a setting with routine TB contact invitation. Okay, let's welcome Barbara Berman.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the kind invitation. It's my pleasure and my privilege to be here today to share with you part of the results of my doctoral studies. This was one of the parts of the doctoral studies which is actually quite interesting because it wasn't considered like to be the main paper, and it turns out it's the most important because our medical training focused mainly when we were still doing the Millennium Development Goals, so we're just operating in one system. So it's my pleasure to actually share a focused presentation that would look at more of sustainable, how to look at things in a sustainable manner. So this is the outline of the presentation. I'll show you the study area, talk about TB in Kenya briefly, talk about sustainability science, the issues that I identified, and the way forward. This was a part of a TB household contact investigation study. And in Kenya, what is currently going on is contact invitation. Invitation means when you have TB, you are asked, do you live with people in your house? Please ask them to come for screening. But that's the end of it. So it's up to the person who's unwell to ask his family members to come for screening. But in contact investigation, you actually make sure that they must come. You register all of them. You even go to the homes to tell them to come for screening. So the purpose of showing this slide, one is, I apologize for the arrow, to show you how far Kenya is. Yeah, that's Kenya, if you can see that area, and that's Taiwan. So there's like a 15-hour flight and a number of breaks in between. You had to come through the Middle East somewhere there, then to Hong Kong, then to Taiwan. The other reason I'm showing this slide is to look at the problems, countries that actually have TB. I don't know if this was a coincidence, but 4 or 5 of us, our countries have high TB rates. So I don't know if it was a coincidence that, TB is 4 out of 5 amongst the laureates. One of us is from Philippines, there's somebody from Kenya, South Africa, and India. So 4 countries actually have that much TB. So that's Kenya on the country map. And you could see this small area here. It's very small. This is Lake Victoria. This is Kisumu. You can see how small Kisumu County is. From 2010, Kenya was divided into 47 counties. This small county called Kisumu has a population of 5.4 million. The country is to 40 million. But when you compare the population density, in the country, most of this area up here is very dry. Yeah, it's like sort of close to a desert. This area down here is pretty rich, and you can see it's pretty green and all that. So this, when you look at the whole population, the density is 75 persons per square kilometer. But when you come to this small area called Kisumu, it is 508, like 5 times the number of people. So it's very crowded. And the case notification, when the country is talking about 170 per 100,000 population, in Kisumu we are talking about 228. The other thing also, HIV is like 3 times the country average within Kisumu. So you can see we have a storehouse of not very nice things. So, courtesy of the TB program in Kenya, they looked at the TB rates from 1987 up to 2012. If we draw this graph, it just keeps coming down from there. So if we could just look at all the TB cases, there was an increase. I cannot really tell you why it was increasing up to somewhere there. Maybe they were not documenting, maybe they were not diagnosing, but from 1999, in 1999, you can see we were almost at the peak. That is when TB in the country was, HIV prevalence was 14%. And at that time, HIV diagnosis was a death sentence. There was no ARVs. And unfortunately, because we also didn't know it was HIV, there was no testing. So people would be very sick before they get to hospital. And when they come, you're told you have HIV and you're told, sorry. Yeah, that's all you can do for you. There's nothing much you can do. So TB like increased 10 times between 1999 and 2000. And when we go to 2005, we thank God for PEPFAR and the TRIPS and the patents. I know we can talk about this all this time. But for the first time in Kenya, HIV was available, drugs for HIVs were available for free. So you can see exactly in 2005, things started coming down. And the main reason is because TB and HIV are so closely linked. So we switch a bit and we say, what are the successes of development over time? Some of this is from the Brundtland report of 1987. I know it looks like a long time ago, but they still make sense. Between 2000 and 2013, the 10 years, 37 million lives have been saved from TB interventions. And between 1990 to 2013, there's a 45% decrease in TB mortality. This is worldwide, yeah? And 41% decrease in TB prevalence. And the basis of this success are interventions for TB, which we'll look at. Freely available ART, I think we've talked about that. We'll not go into details, but ART is known to decrease TB incidence. And others are increase in life expectancy, sanitations, and all those other reasons. So what are the failures? Because not everything has been fine. You could see Kisumu County is overcrowded. Because it's overcrowded, we don't have, as usual, like economics. Our demands are more. The land is still the same size. We are more people, so we start having unsound homes. Then we are cooking with paraffin and biofuels, and the houses are smoky. There are more people hungry ever than before. Illiteracy levels are also increasing, as much as it's a bit not so. And this is a big problem. It's not just a problem that people are not getting, to jobs. You also have to treat them, so they have to understand what's going on. There's a widening gap between the rich and the poor. There are interlocking crises. Interlocking means that there's no one way we'll address TB by saying, this is just for the health system, this is just for this system. A wicked problem is a huge, expanding, complex problem that does not have one solution. And TB is a wicked problem, it's one of them. And whatever arrangements we have right now are not going to address this problem with TB. So, briefly, 4 strategies to, actually 5 now, to end TB. I don't know if we'll make it. We've been making goals from 1978, from 2000, the MDGs, SDGs, I don't know. But this is what has been happening. Vaccination, I think Kenya we are at 99%. Case finding, active and passive. So far, Kenya has relied on passive case finding until 2010. We believed we had 80% case detection rate, but we've had let me call it fast, TB prevalence survey. From 1958 till now, we can't call this one second. So the first prevalence survey was 1958. Now we've had one in 2015. Actually, we are at 60% case detection. We are not at 8 as we thought. So this 40% of cases of TB who are not being found because we're waiting for them to come to hospital are spreading TB wherever they are. And one person can infect up to 15 people in 1 year. And imagine the next one infects the next one, the next one. So we have to go look for them and put them on TB treatment. When you find them, if they have active TB, you give them treatment, which is also available for free, 95% cure rates if they finish the treatment as recommended. If you find them with passive TB, we are giving TB prevention treatment. We hope that if you reduce the prevalence of latent TB to less than 1%, you can actually end TB. Because these people who have this TB in their body and they're not manifesting it can actually end up having active TB and start infecting other people. So you find them, you give them treatment, and they stop spreading the TB, they stop progressing. Number 5, which has not been there, this is other interventions. From last year, this is the TB report for 2017. They talked about indicators within the Sustainable Development Goals that can end TB. I've grouped them so that I don't tell you so many things. They're health related. There's something I didn't mention behind in terms of the failures. We have a changing disease pattern. We're no longer having infections only in developing countries. We're having non-communicable diseases. So somebody has TB and HIV and diabetes and they're not old. They're pretty young. So far we have so much success with TB and HIV, as I showed you in the graph. But now in Kenya we've had a diabetes prevalence survey, and it's saying like 80% of people have never been screened for diabetes. So we have another problem there. These others are also there. We talked about undernourishment, many people who are very hungry, coverage of universal health services, financial, I think this is, we cannot really discuss it, population living in slums, clean fuels. So, what are the conditions for sustainability science? This slide is a bit crowded, I apologize, but I was really struggling to put everything together to make some sense. We're going to span from local to global. With globalization and industrialization, you cannot say TB is a problem for one person. Today I'm on a flight, I'm in an international airport. I think you all know how SARS spread and Ebola. So problems are no longer like separate. You have to be future oriented. We have long-term and short-term goals. I'll try and pick some of them as we go through the presentation. We have to focus on justice, equity, and universalism, as in everybody should be covered. So far, TB is a disease of poverty. I think you've seen all those things are just for poor people, yeah? Living in slums, no food, not educated, those are problems for poor people, yeah? A normative approach. We should provide what is supposed to be. I think the title said issues to be considered. Everybody should get screening, whether you're poor or you're rich. Because if I'm rich and I don't really care, tomorrow you'll sit next to me. And what has actually happened in some families in Kenya is their house helps and the people who work in their homes have actually infected their children with TB. So TB is everybody's problem, yeah? Accounting for human volition. I think everybody knows human beings are difficult people, yeah? Whether they're health workers or they're patients, everybody has been difficult at some point. Even me, I'm guilty. And I'll show you where that comes in. We have to take both approaches, quali and quanti, and I'm very happy that this is more of a social science approach being focused on. Accounting for temporal inertia, urgency, I think I told you how many people can be infected within a year, and there's some uncertainty. We're not really sure what may happen, because just because I'm providing, bigger windows, it doesn't mean tomorrow there'll be less TB, yeah? So let's move on. Now, we'll move to, this is what we did. The study was a household contact investigation study. You get diagnosed in a TB clinic. We document everybody who lives in your home. We come to your home, we screen them, bring them to the clinic. We screen them, which was quite costly. Start them on treatment. Refer them for treatment. Treatment wasn't really part of the study. We're using both methods, quali and quanti. I think I had mentioned this. So for quantitative, because this is already another ongoing study, we have a lot of data. Actually, we had like 8 separate tables for each of them. Each of the TB indexes have like 8 separate different data tables, contacts, 8. And then qualitative, thank you, almost done anyway. Qualitative, we use a consent cover sheet. So after you take a consent, you write like what else happened during the consent. There were participant tracking logs and minutes of meetings. So those were the issues. Identification of TB indexes and contacts. We assume that you'll just you'll see them and talk to them and document how many people there are. 44% of people who have TB are living with somebody, yeah? And like a fifth of them have an under 5 child in the house. So with so many people, like we had 80,000 people diagnosed last year with TB. So if you want to start screening for them, just wait for the costs, eh? And then, so what you can do, I'll go briefly, is you can decide who's high risk. We identified some high risk factors in the study, that this is the person I'll screen. And the other ones, I'll watch. I'll tell them, just stay. If the child has coughs or anything, please bring the child for screening or bring the person for screening. Non-documentation. We didn't have a place to document which like who are the family members. But the HIV program has started. They have a family card. So if you're sick, everybody's documented on your card. We don't have a physical address system in Kenya. This may sound unrealistic now that we are here in Taiwan. But there are community health workers who keep registers in the villages of family members and all that. And with time, I'm told there was a physical address system before the colonialists left, and I think somebody, in whatever mind, abolished it. So we're going to have it with time. So that's like a long-term goal. Refusals. These are the human volition people. Like, I don't want. What are you going to do to me? I don't want to come for screening. We need health education and possibly legislation. There are rules that say if you have TB, you must get treated. But there's no rule for the person you live with who might actually be having TB. Yeah, so we may need to move there. People move. So what if the person is not there? If the systems are linked, if you go to the next district, we can tell them, look for that person. The treatment cascade, poor risk perception, like, I'm fine, I'm not coming. Yeah, so, educate them and tell them why it's important to screen. Absence of timely and valid diagnostics, especially for children. There are problems with diagnosing TB. We can improve the algorithms, do community screening in the short term, and improve the point of care diagnostics in the long term. This is a bit expensive. And we had drug stockouts. Fine, give me isoniazid, it's not there. So just go back home, hopefully you're not going to get sick. The health management information systems, I think I mentioned there were like 16 tables to track this data. I'm supposed to be able to track at any one point. I have 5 contacts in this home. How many came, how many refused, how many have started on treatment. Like, it's a very complex system. So for that, we can use paper. I beg your indulgence for 2 minutes or so. We can try and use paper in the short term and improve tracking tools, or have a clinical support, decision support system. We may need a totally new system in the long term. So I think I've mentioned everywhere, cost of tests, cost of transport, cost of what. And then I'm going to tell you, go, come, come TST today, 3 days, come reading, come tomorrow, come for this. Everybody doesn't like going to hospital like 5 or 6 times, yeah? So we can give them isoniazid at home. Where we have, like, in the study, 40% of the children actually were positive by skin test. So in a place like Kenya, if you have a child less age than 5 years, as long as they don't have TB, I think we're justified in giving all of them isoniazid. After all, it's just 1 in 2 will actually have latent TB. We may need to set up a total new system for monitoring, and we have to look at urban planning. So the way forward is to consider the cost implications. Before I would have said TB program should consider. No. I think there is housing, yeah? There are fuels. This is not a problem for the health system alone, yeah? There is to the program, to the patient, support data demands, to the government, to other people. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to speak to you today.
TB 吗？太棒了 ，excellent. Okay, 花莲的 actually the TB incidence in Taiwan is about 0.65%, decreased to 0.65% for the population older than 20 years old. But in the eastern Taiwan, the rate is a bit higher. Yeah, but a lot of the doctors and nurses are very dedicated in the controlling the TB. Yeah. Okay. A.
Yeah. Thank you, Doctor, for your very informative talk. And I am a PhD student coming from Myanmar. So Myanmar is one of the countries that we are still battling with the TB. So maybe I missed one point that, what do you mean by the word that we clean them? Because TB is very much associated with the poverty. Even though you give the drugs and the patient is coming back to their home, and because of the very crowded and more personal contact. So I would like to ask that, how can we make solve the problem of this issue?
Thank you for your question. Previous studies have shown that the main factor that would influence somebody transmitting infection to somebody living in the house is that they shared a sleeping area. Yeah, maybe a bedroom, a living room, or they spent at least 8 hours in contact together, for the whole day. So there are a number of things you could do. One is reduce that contact time by having a separate sleeping area if somebody has TB. But the most efficient is actually to start the person on treatment, because within 2 weeks, this person can actually even stay with this. The infectiousness has reduced if it is just drug-resistable TB. And now the person can stay with the other people. So of importance is within the past 3 months before they got diagnosed with TB, screen all the people who are in the house so that whoever you find has TB starts treatment, because they stop the chain of infection. And whoever doesn't have TB, depending on the guidelines in your country, you start them on isoniazid. And you could tell them, once you're diagnosed, don't sleep in the same room with somebody. It doesn't matter, child or an adult. Try and keep the windows open. I know we may not change the housing immediately, but you can limit the amount of time they're staying together. Thank you. You need some more information? I think my email address is there. Mm-hmm.
Any other question? Yes, Xinyi. 好。等一下，等麦克风，我们这边听不太到。
在台湾 ，TB 有大部分是在东部是一个很大的问题，所以大概在10年前的时候，WHO 开始推 DOTS， 就是 Directly Observed Treatment Shorter Course Plus this program。然后台湾东部地区在李仁智医师的那个就是它就是组成这一个 DOTS 的一个情形，然后也有效的降低了我们花莲地区的 TB 的一个情况，然后也开始会去，应该讲，他说这是结合了公卫体系，除了在前面病人被诊断是 TB 之后，他在医院接受前2周的一个密集的药物的治疗，之后他就回家，回家之后有公卫护士或者是有计划的护士会每天按照时间，就送药到他的家里面去，让护士看着他吃药，这有效的去降低了一个TB 的再发率，还有就是传染性。那我们的公卫也是，他们就是会定期到好发率很高的地方去做一个 screen。那我不知道说刚刚可能有点漏时让，然后就没有听到说大概，因为这是 WHO 开始在推的，好像不知道肯亚有没有类似这样的一个行动。谢谢。
She's asking that actually TB rate in eastern Taiwan is a serious issue. However, Dr. Li Renzhi in慈济Medical Center and other a group of nurses are very devoted. They implement the dose system, and then monitoring the drug taking progress, and they go to the patient's home every day, okay, and to watch them take the drugs, so which is very efficiently decrease the TB rate. So is there a similar implementation in Kenya? But I think you just mentioned because the physical address system is not very good in Kenya. So that's a problem, right, to follow the patient's home.
Actually, the DOTS program has been ongoing for a long time, but the problem has been that we're just working on passive case finding. So when you have TB, actually the treatment clinic must know where you live. And if there's a TB clinic nearer where you live, they actually send you to pick your medication from that TB clinic. So if you're diagnosed in this town and they start you off like maybe a week's dose, they refer you to that TB clinic nearer your home so that you can easily come to collect treatment. And there's a DOT system for TB treatment. But that has been very efficient only because it's only for the passive case finding. And actually, majority of patients complete their treatment. So the TB program in Kenya, as much as we have so many numbers, it's been quite successful in terms of monitoring and numbers and all that. But the challenge is that as much as the numbers have decreased from around 110,000 to around 80,000 now per year, we are worried that there is still a number that are not being diagnosed, especially now that the prevalence survey showed the TB prevalence is like double what we've been getting the estimates from the WHO. So maybe just to add on the first question I was asked, there is also the active case finding. If you go to the home communities and talk to people and tell them, if you're coughing, come for screening, you'll also get some people earlier. They should be aware that if you're coughing, come to hospital and get screening for TB. It's better you just be diagnosed early. Yeah.
好，就是说他们其实他们也有这样的类似的系统，但是他们把药是送在病患家附近的诊所，但是另外还有很多其他的问题，譬如说诊断率也不是很高。好，所以虽然你追踪了一群的病人，可是另外一群的病人还没有被诊断出来，他们继续的传播，好，也是一个问题。所以从各个方面，从卫教，从这个 system 的落实都很重要。OK， 好。All right, thank you, Barbara. Okay, our next speaker is Dr. Wina Guerra from Philippines. Dr. Guerra received her bachelor degree from University of the Philippines, Cebu. Cebu 应该是宿务，好，各位同学 Cebu. And then she went to University of the Philippines, Diliman, to study the labor and get her master degree. Then she continued her study in Master of Arts in International Development at the Nagoya University at Japan, Mingu大学. Then she received the doctoral philosophy PhD degree in international development, also in Nagoya University. Dr. Guerra currently is assistant professor of governance and development in the political science program of the College of the Social Sciences at the University of the Philippines, Cebu. So today, she is going to talk about opportunities and pitfalls of open government partnerships for sustainable development. Let's welcome Dr. Guerra.
Good morning. It's a privilege to be here, but my slide seems to be not ready. I'm not sure. Okay. This one. All right, so I'm going to run through my slides because there's a lot. So I will be sharing with you today part of what I'm currently doing. It's about opportunities and pitfalls of open government partnership for sustainable development. So this is essentially about governance and public policy issues. I'm looking into the tripartite co-regulation in the Philippine coal industry. Right, no, it's not working. Or here. Okay, so just a very quick outline, an overview on the Anthropocene and coal's assault to climate, environment, and public health, and then I'm going to quick through the rationale and the framework and what the OGP is all about and what tripartite co-regulation in the Philippine coal industry is and a few policy considerations. So this is where we are. We are now in the age of the Anthropocene. I think everybody probably is familiar about this. If you're not, it's time to know. So we have reached a point in our lives where humanity is literally eating up the earth. So all these studies have shown you, so there's a strong scientific consensus that humanity basically is the prime driver of change on a global scale. So those are all evidences of the IPCC and 30,000 scientific papers, establishing or arguing that human influence on climate system is clear and growing. And carbon dioxide, or the combustion of fossil fuels, is humanity's biggest contribution to climate change or to global warming. And so coal stokes global warming because coal is made up mainly with carbon. So carbon dioxide is the main byproduct of coal combustion. So it's a very issue when we deal with coal. So mining is the first step of the dirty process of the life cycle of coal. So there is where the stories of displacement of communities begin. You can look at especially when the mines expand, there are coal fires, there are contaminated water supplies, and then of course, it's very easy to destroy the forests and dig up, and then the remains though, they leave behind acid mine drainage and they persist for decades. Okay, so what I'm trying to emphasize here is that coal is a very dirty story. So when coal is burned in power plants, it produces airborne pollutants of particulate matter, such as all these: sulfur dioxide, oxides of nitrogen, carbon dioxide, mercury, arsenic, uranium, all those in fly ash. Okay? And coal, particularly carbon dioxide emissions, has been attributed to many of the extreme weather phenomena that we are experiencing in our lives. And so an estimated average of 350 disaster incidents each year are affecting 700 million victims globally. So you can see that the above photo is the case in the Philippines in Typhoon Haiyan in 2013, and this one is the 311 tsunami in Japan. And the most vulnerable countries are often the poorer countries. And they are the most at risk in terms of these disaster incidents. And the Philippines is always ranked number 3 in the world's risk report. And my country has about an average of 20 major storms every year. So that's really not a very happy story. Yeah? And when there's floods bring the disease. Like all these cholera, leptospirosis, hepatitis A, vector-borne diseases as well because of mosquitoes. And so coal air pollutes our health and harms our health. So the moment it emits toxic pollutants to the air, we obviously breathe it in. So all these fine pollution particles and chemicals, all are damaging to our health. And so pollution from burning coal also leads to acid rain. Okay, and it can basically harm our plants and animals. Okay, sorry. And more scientific evidence of the consequences of the health effects of coal. All these respiratory issues, infant mortality was shown to increase because of coal consumption, and even obesity. You wouldn't believe that, right? You would think that obesity is just calorie in, calorie out, but it's actually the obesogens, or the toxic chemicals in the environment, that's contributing to obesity of people. So there's now environmental link to obesity. So all these are studies on the whole life cycle of coal, its impact on the environment as well as on human health. And so the Greenpeace commissioned Harvard to actually do a paper on the consequences or the diseases as well as the deaths that are attributed to coal use. And this is in the context of the Philippines. And there's a lot. So what I'm trying to say here is that it's already been argued and established that coal is, in fact, a dangerous fossil. Coal is a dangerous source of energy. Yet, this is what our story begins to become controversial, because coal remains to be one of the main global energy sources that we are using. In 2013, it is about less than 30%, of the generation that's coming from coal. However, 46% of global CO2 emissions are actually from coal. What we can see now is that there are those who are saying that, coal is basically a dying industry, it's gonna disappear at some point because of these records, that there is a recent stagnation of a demand for coal. So you can really see them that they are like on a straight line. You see, in fact, you can really, in the case of Europe, Canada, the US, there seems to be a really slow decline, including China. But the case of China is like a slow decline. So there's a forecast there that from 27 to 26% because of this sluggish demand. However, the case of China is very interesting because even if they say China's coal consumption has peaked, you know, like it is still the single largest coal consumer or user in the world. So 60% of China's energy mix is still coming from coal. So coal is still very predominant industry globally. And even if there is a decline in Europe and in the US, the rest of Asia, there is a rising demand. So in the case of Pakistan, Dubai, Indonesia, India, and the rest of Southeast Asia, the demand for coal remains to be increasing. So what I'm saying is that it is an issue to contend with. We have to deal with it. Because coal is here to stay. Even if we know that it's actually a very dangerous and very dirty fossil fuel. So it's an industry that's poised to endure. You can see that in 2017, in Asia Pacific, it is actually increasing. And in the case of the ASEAN, Indonesia there is being led by all the others, and it's still, the phenomenon is an increasing demand, you know. So in the case of the Philippines, the country continues to be heavily dependent on coal energy. So 1/3 of the energy that we use to generate our electricity is coming from coal. And in fact, because we are right now more import dependent, our government is now trying to allow more permits for exploration because we needed to produce our own coal. So it is ongoing. And so this is what we can see all over the news all the time. There is a prevalence of coal mining in Southeast Asia. In Myanmar, in Vietnam, you know, in Indonesia, in the Philippines. So coal endures. It is an industry that is poised to endure, particularly in the developing regions, because of unabated demand for cheap energy. So even if it's going to change, you know, in the coming decades, basically it is an essential energy that we have to contend with and deal with. And you remember the SDGs? SDG 7 is towards clean energy. So that is the prevalent discourse of our times. So what are we going to do with achieving SDGs? So this is the debate. What do we do with coal? Do we completely end coal or quit coal, or do something about coal? And then some sectors of our society are saying there's actually clean coal. And then I said, no, that's a myth. How could coal be clean? Coal is intrinsically dirty. You know, but then there are always those assertions about a low emission technology pathway, or carbon capture and storage, or what was mentioned by our keynote speaker, the Internet of Things, even in coal mining, that can probably potentially clean up the process of coal. You know, so there is an ongoing debate that we have to face. And so the rationale of my study is that there is an imperative for relevant governance reforms for industry regulation towards sustainability. So whether we like it or not, we can say that, yeah, coal is bad, but coal is here. So how do we deal with it? So it is an issue of regulation. How the coal industry is managed and regulated to keep mining corporations into account pose critical implications on sustainability. And how can we actually transform the industry that they become self-regulating, and then they will actually help the rest of society clean up their act, you know, and become transformative as well. So my main research question is this, you know, like whether and how the Philippine tripartite co-regulation structures for sustainability could enforce corporate accountability. In other words, who is regulating the coal mining industry and how? And does it work? Now, we have many programs asserting that there is a need for co-regulation, which means it is not only about government, but a partnership with civil society, as well as business. And that was also emphasized by our keynote speaker, about the partnership and governance. You know, so why governance for sustainable development? Why is this a very critical issue when we talk about sustainable development? We cannot really talk of sustainability without talking about politics, whether we like it or not. So safeguarding planetary and human health requires strengthening governance capacity. So it is beyond the technical dimensions. We also have to deal with the political dimensions of development. So we need to look at sustainability within the corridors of power. So good governance is the foundation of all these pillars of sustainable development. So it requires that public officials are put into account, and we need to consider how how government institutions are arranged. And I have to run because I have more slides. And so this is basically what tripartite co-regulation is about. It is a partnership between civil society and the business sector together with the government. So if all three are playing a leading role, then you can speak of tripartite co-regulation. The issue is, are these three actually equal? Considering that the state continues to exercise legitimate monopoly of authority vis-a-vis the power of the business sector and the power of civil society. Okay? So that is what and the OGP I'll run through, this is one of the programs that basically espouses openness of government and partnership for participatory governance. Okay, so this is the framework. You improve energy efficiency by promoting transparency and accountability for the mechanisms of government and allowing space for the civil society to interact with government and business so they can advance their cause. And to facilitate open data to monitor and identify gaps for implementation. The thing is, this is the case in my country. This is a quick, thank you. This is a quick findings of my study. There's lack of coherence among line agencies. There's ambivalence of legal frameworks that fragments intergovernmental allocation of regulatory authorities, and then there's a buyout of local officials. In other words, to make it simple, there are elements in society that are actually controlling the main decisions. We are operating in a framework of governance and tripartite co-regulation. So we have mining monitoring teams to monitor the sustainability performance of the coal industry. So they invite representatives from civil society, and they of course invite the business sector from the coal mining sector, and then the government. And they assert that, we are equal here. But in reality, of course, that is not the case. And it's not even just the government asserting bigger control, but elements, or what I call the patrimonial forces, who are controlling the agencies of government and dictating the terms in terms of what to do with coal industry. So the argument here is that the use of coal remains central to capital accumulation. And if you are familiar with capitalism, you will understand the very framework of economic model that continues to be used by the coal industry. There is a regulatory capture by patrimonial interests within the states that exercise leverage over the coal industry. So this is the impact. The biggest coal mining corporation in my country has been violating many of our environmental standards. And so there is the disincentive for sustainability performance, even if the Philippines have been partners and members of these OGP frameworks, even if we do have environmental legislations providing for mining monitoring teams, this remains to be the reality. And so co-regulation is only by name, but in practice, it is not a real partnership, rather a predominance of one sector over the other. And that is a state captured by private interests. And so I will end with my policy considerations that in the context of a weak state, you need to design intervention and incentive systems that could well integrate and maximize the benefits of those industries that are actually performing. You cannot rely completely on the government if your government is very corrupt. So what to do now? How do we mobilize civil society to actually put our governments into account, particularly when the government starts entering into collusions with the industry? And remember that this mining industry has a lot of money and they're willing to pay. Why? Because they're dirty. And so to conclude it, we have to remember, we are familiar with this, right? The balance of the three pillars. We are actually encouraged to reframe the way we think, because it is not about three sectors that are separated with each other. Rather, it is an embedding of these pillars. We have to, if we are to talk about sustainable development, we always begin with economy. Because the more we consume this whole capital accumulation, if we do not stop this extraction and over-industrial production and over-consumption and over-manufacturing, we will continue to exploit our resources. Because we can only really think about society and the whole life system on how we consume our natural resources. So I'll end like that. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Since the coal is kind of toxic energy, what are your opinions about the alternative energy? Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Indeed, I think the way to go and the only way to go is to go clean. And I think clean are the renewables. And in fact, there are a lot of scientists coming out now. That's why we encourage our young people not to be like me, because like me, we rely on policy people like me, our academics. We tend to rely on scientific data that are provided by the scientists who are actually doing experimentations and studies. But there are already a lot of scientific articles, saying that the solar photovoltaic is actually becoming cheaper right now. And wind energy is also something that can be maximized. And of course, nuclear energy might even be, but nuclear energy has also its own dangers and downsides. But the thing is, coal is not our only option. It's really a matter of political will to say we probably should stop using coal. But the reality, though, is that that's not going to happen, at least not in my lifetime. I think, hopefully in this kid's lifetime. You can think of ways, but my opinion about it is coal is a no option. What I'm just trying to do with the study is while it's there, how can we actually try to regulate them in a way that they can probably minimize the production?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Guerra. Due to the time limit, we have to thank Dr. Guerra at this point. Thank you. And I'm going to pass the microphone to next chair of the symposium section, Professor Cai Juanxiu. Cai Juanxiu. Professor Cai is a professor at our Department of Nursing. So she's going to host the following sections. Thank you.
Okay, now it's my honor to introduce two of our speakers from our local area, from慈济University, another one is from Taidong University. Before that, let me do some advocate for SDGs. Let me get a little bit time for that for our junior future scientists. Okay, and then please apologize for using Chinese. 好，这位同学，大家请问一下，你听过 SDG 的，请举手。你听过 SDGs？ 我们今天的那个题目叫做 SDGs, right? Sustainable Development Goals. 你听过的举手。好，那 let me give you a little bit information about that, so you will maybe our future will in your hands. So we hope that you know more about that. 那是 WHO 它所提出来的有关于17项永续地球永续的策略。So if you got your app, if you got your mobile phone, you can use it SDGs in action. 我们有一个 APP 叫 SDGs in action. When你如果找寻的话，它就会看到 SDGs in action. And in there, there's all 17 goals in there. So every day they will give you news. For example, nuclear. Let me see. For example, for today's news, they will give you mobile phone company launch a new app. 好，它就每一天它就很多 news。好，它国际新闻，每一个新闻它就会说跟这17个目标的哪几个目标相关。Okay, so before that, we know from our previous speaker, we know there's no clean coal anyway. 好，那 that's a debate for our company as well, for our country as well about energy and economy and environmental protection. These 3 E. Okay. 所以其实像刚刚在讲的，就是他会提到的是，我们永续经营，我们需要国家发展、经济发展，所以我们需要能源。可是我们需要国家经济发展才有钱，可能源、钱跟环境保护，因为没有了地球，什么都没有了。所以 let's begin the 17 goal. Okay, so you can look at what goal will it be? So it will be a clean energy, 干净的能源 and employee and development. And goal 3 is well-being, 人类健康。好，所以 PM 2.5 is linked to goal 3. Okay, so all these speeches today is about 70 goals. Okay, so you can look at what goals, 什么样的那个目标是 linked with this speech. Okay, now is the time to introduce our next speaker. Next speaker is 吕佩伦老师. Okay, this 吕佩伦老师 is assistant professor in National Taichung University in the Department of Life Science. Okay, and today she got her PhD from University of Hawaii, and today her speech will be sustainable development in 资本湿地 in Taichung. Okay, so let's give a big applause for our speaker.
Thank you very much for a very great introduction for me, and it's my pleasure to give it a speech here. And thank you very much for the Grant Brand and the Town Prize Foundation to give me this opportunity. And today my topic is talk about the wetlands. And what's important about the wetlands? I believe that most of the junior high school the high school student, I think you know about the importance about the wetlands, but maybe not our government. Sometimes it doesn't work. It really cannot work. It's okay. Okay. Computer. Okay. Thank you. I will try again next time. Okay. The first information about wetlands, not all the trees are good trees, but all the wetlands are good wetlands. Do you understand? All the wetlands are good wetlands. Okay. What do I say about this? Because now you see this image. This photo was taken in the good conditions of this Zhiben wetland. This is the other view see from the Zhiben wetland, and you can see that this wetland belongs to the freshwater wetlands, but it's very close to the coastline, so it has a lot of interaction between the salty water and the fresh water during the estuaries, especially after the hurricane coming, such as typhoon seasons coming, and it will have a lot of the ocean waters, Pacific Ocean waters, and enter the fresh wetlands. Because of the time, the limitations, so I don't talk about the connections and the importance about wetland and the climate change. Just everybody know that the wetlands is part of very important mitigations for the carbon dioxide. It means that the wetland looks nothing. I mean, for other government, to the point, maybe think the wetland is kind of little useless for the economics, but actually the wetlands is very important and the main resource to do the mitigation for climate change. It's more important than the forest. It's kind of 50% from a lot of research in the international levels. 50% of the carbon dioxide was fixed by the wetlands. Now look at where is the location about the Zhiben wetland. Zhiben wetland is called Zhiben Shidi. It has been designed as the international wetland, but it's not included in the national the wetland. So it means it's not the 国家湿地, it's just a wetlands. The wetlands, you can see that the locations is between the Zhiben River. This is the Zhiben River. The Zhiben River and the upper one of the streams called the Shemagan River. And this is the Shemagan Rivers. You see a lot of farms. So it's kind of a lot of development, farming going on around the wetlands. This photo was taken last year after the typhoon season. Usually, the wetland, what's called wetland, is supposed as water, right? But very quickly, few days later, this taken 7 days after this, the typhoon come to this wetland, you can see all the water is gone. Now you find a difference, right? How come there's no water in the wetland? Oh, unfortunately, because it's the artificial reasons. The local farmers around the Zhiben wetland, and then they use the machine to make the channel between the freshwater wetland and to the coastal line, and so the fresh water will go away from the Zhiben wetland and into the oceans. So this is why all the water is gone. But why do they need to do this? Oh, because later I will show one thing. There are a lot of disturbance in ecology. Well, I'm a plant ecologist and evolutionist, so I do a lot of molecular evolution things in the plants. And after I come to teach in National Taidong University, and I began my new research in wetlands. And this is my first year studies. I noticed that a lot of fire going on, a lot of fires going on in the Zhiben wetland, and the fires is related about the local farmers. They needed to make all the waters from the wetland gone away. Before I tell you the result, and I just show what's the traditional things you can see in the wetlands. In Zhiben wetlands, you can see a lot of the endangered species of birds. And if a student, if you like to watch the bird, you will know what is the birds on the PowerPoint. This is called Huangli, and this is only the 200 individuals in Taiwan. This bird only 200 people in Taiwan, do you believe? Okay, it's only 200 birds in Taiwan. And you can often see these kinds of endangered species birds and going on, stay in the Zhiben wetland. And the English name is called orioles. Orioles. This is one of the native birds in Taiwan. These are also the very rare birds in Taiwan, and you can see this one is the white-breasted water hens. Maybe you often see this, maybe not, I don't know. And then this one is the brown back, the shrike. And maybe this is more often you can see in the wetlands, in the coastal lines in the east coast in Taiwan. And this one is the patient. This is Huan Jingzhi, the Chinese call Huan Jingzhi, and this is also one of endangered birds in Taiwan, endangered animals in Taiwan. In this wetland, I noticed that a lot of endangered birds going on here, and from the last year, 1 year research, this is my 1 year research, the data show that about the 185 birds has been recorded in these wetlands. It's underpriced 53 families. So what's the important information about this, the data? There are about the 600 birds in Taiwan, 600 bird species in Taiwan, and you can see 185 bird species in this 日本 Vietnam. So it's about the 33% of the birds in Taiwan you can record in the 日本 Vietnam. So, and compared to the other Vietnams, Taiwan has a lot of Vietnams, and there's a society called Taiwan Society of Vietnams. And from their data compared to my data, this is really the treasure amazing, the data, because there's no, the other Vietnam can record so many the bird species in the past 1 year. But of course, the other reason that according to the industries, the industry development, the strategy, and the areas in Taiwan, you can see the western side of Taiwan is most very well developed. But eastern side, in Taiwan, eastern side, such as Taitung and Hualien and the Yilan, it is still very clear. It's not so much the air pollution, and in the Taitung, we don't have industries. In the Taitung counties, almost no industries. So it's the air is more fresh, more clean than any counties in Taiwan. So this is the most cleanest county in our countries. So maybe that's why there are so many birds. There are so many birds, including native birds and endangered birds can be found in Taitung. Maybe this is other reason that why compared to the other wetlands in all over Taiwan, but we can get most of the bird species in the wetlands, in these wetlands. This is, the normal times of the wetland, and you don't see a lot of water because the human development. I just want to show that there are two endangered plant species can be found in these wetlands. This one is called Formosa, Taiwan or Formosa fire zones, and this is mature fruits. And when they become mature, they have the red colors, and a lot of the birds then will eat these plants. And the other one, I'm kind of not surprised to find these plants in the 日本 wetlands, because the plants has become almost gone in the west side of Taiwan. Taiwan have the central mountains, separate the east and the west. And the west is a lot of the pollutions. And so that's why I never see this. I never see this in the west coast from the Danshui, the river Danshui wetland, or Keelung, the coastal line, and until the Kending, the south of Taiwan. I look at all these plants. And I only find this in the eastern coast, in Taitung, and also Hualien and the Yilan. I'll show you some of the video and tell you about the connection, about what I needed to let the water go and let these kinds of the fires going on these wetlands. It cannot show the video, so it's fine. We can see this later. I don't know. Just let you know, like, did you get the answers? Why the local farmers and needed to do the fires very often, and to burn the wetlands and make all of this after the vegetation is gone after the fires. Now you got the answer right. Yeah, because they do this for livestock. A lot of livestock, such as goat and the cows, and has no regulations. Okay, only have 3 minutes. Just there's no regulation going on these wetlands, and there's no previous research. There's no any publications. In Chinese or in SCI papers, I did not see a lot. I did not see the research officially talk about the wetland problems in Japan. So I was keep about this story, but just let you know. Luckily, I have been through the 1 year plant ecology study, and I make 55 plots in the Japan wetlands. So this is all my plot, the locations. And I find this is the first hands of the data. 133 plant species under place of the 113 families. And native plants was about 61%. And the product analysis showed that the woody dome species in the region is called the white-leaded trees. It's one of the very invasive the tree species, the Leucaena. And the result later, the shrub area dominated by the gunia grass, the other very invasive grass. And the creeping panic and the para grass, then are also most dominant species in the grass area. And the riparian vegetation is dominated by the paper model and the Leucaena. We only find the paper mulberries. Paper mulberry is one of the very important native tree species in Taiwan. And so luckily that there are still a lot in these the wetlands. So probably no time to show, but just show the left one and the right one, they are all invasive species. And this also invasive species. And the left one of this is paper mulberries, 构树. So this is all my data, and but probably there's no time to show you and counter discussion. The riparian vegetation is very unique. The plant vegetation can be found in the world. What is riparians? Riparian is that the river bank beside the wetlands, but it's have covered by the plants, several different kind of plants, including the grass, shrub, and the tree. So it's, if this the wetlands, we call the riparian the vegetation, and it's very unusual, can be found in the freshwater wetland, because most of the freshwater wetland is covered only by the grass or the field of the trees. So can tolerate the deeper waters, the trees. Okay. So my time is up, but just to let you know that if you are interested about the Zhiben wetlands, and you can use the apps, the iNaturalist, and we post all the data there. So, and these are QR codes. And thank you much. These are all my students in my lab. And thank you.
Thank you, Professor Liu, for wonderful speech. And wetland is a very important resource for land. And so it's about the sustainable goal 15, 陆地生物, and also the climate 13. So any question from the audience? I think you got some courses, 地科吧, huh? Any question or comments from our young future scientist? Or from our audience? Any comments or question you would like to ask?
Okay. Can you recognize this bird?
Oh, okay.
That's all
the bird.
Yeah. Does any one of you know this? You can speak in Chinese.
Fellows, what's the bird's name? 那什么鸟?
你可以讲中文. You can speak in Chinese if you don't know English of this. The bird's name is called gray herons in English. Gray herons. Huh? So what happened to the high school students? You never watched the birds in your life? 苍鹭啊. 苍鹭. If you see this, I think you are lucky. But if you come to the Zhiben wetland, you will see this every day. So you are lucky every day.
Wow, every day. How special.
Yeah, it's not easy to see this.
Okay, so because of any question from the audience, and may I ask you, due to Taichung to do sightseeing, I recognize the 琵琶湖黑森林 is gone because of the fire.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
琵琶湖.
Is that the same kind of the way? Is that called wetland or not?
Yeah, it's wetland. It's national
right?
wetland. It's
national
wetland.
National wetland. So what's the
It's national
difference
wetland.
yeah, because I think it's close to the sea.
Yeah, it's beside the Beilan River.
Yeah, Beilan River.
Yeah, Beilan River wetland. It's national level wetland.
Yeah.
And
Can
yeah,
you comment on the differences, or is similar, or?
we need more conservation.
Okay, because of the time, so if you are interested in life science for your future, maybe you can discuss with our professor later. Let's give a big hand for our professor. Wonderful speech.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so our next speaker, honorably from University, and Associate Professor Huang Shunping. She got her MD from Zhongshan Medical University and PhD from University of South California. And she is an eye doctor. Okay, currently practice, I believe, in Taichung branch of慈济Hospital. And her topic today will be the development of new therapeutic strategy and prevention for optic nerve stroke. Let's welcome our Professor Huang.
Okay, thank you. I'm very glad to be here to share some of my part of my research work. So I'm an eye doctor. So you will hear more about the medical research, okay? So for the past few years, our lab is focused on looking for the novel treatment option for optic nerve disease and for the retinal degeneration. So what is optic nerve stroke? It's related to the stroke. So the official name will be anterior ischemia optic neuropathy, called the AION. So you have two types. One is a non-arthritic, the other is arthritic. So today we focus on the non-arthritic. So the NAION is the most common cause of optic neuropathy in people over the age of 50. Okay, so it's also the aging disease. So patient usually shows up sudden onset of visual loss and commonly unilateral, but unfortunately about 15% to 30% they will have the second eye also have the ischemia. Okay. So the ischemia actually is the result, not the cause. Okay. So but exactly what the cause of the NIOA is unknown. Okay, and unfortunately, until now, there's still no safe, effective treatment. So the optic nerve damage could be permanent and irreversible. Okay. So the clinical feature will shows up like here. People will shows up optic disc swelling. Usually, the optic disc have the clear margin. So you see that's like a fluffy. Disc margin means optic disc swelling, and they also see some hemorrhage. And the visual field defect, people will just complain about, okay, I cannot see the lower part or the upper part. Okay, so the most commonly is lower part. They have the like altitudinal visual defect. Okay. So what's the risk factor of the NAION? So usually it's a systemic disease, such as like diabetes, hypertension, hyperlipidemia, smoking, okay, and also like a coronary heart disease. Are you see those risk factors really familiar? It's similar, almost the same, the risk factor for the stroke, okay? So in 2016, let's study based from our Taiwan National Health Insurance database. It takes from 1 million of the people enrolled from the 2000 to 2011, like 11 years. So they found out the incidence of the NAION was almost like 4 per 100,000 person per year in Taiwan. the incidence is similar to worldwide, okay? But the incidence increase with age. Over 60, the incidence will up to like 16, okay? So patient with the NAION with comorbidity. What's a comorbidity? 共病。好，就是你如果有 NAION， 然后还有刚刚我说的那些 risk factor， 譬如说有 diabetes、hypertension。好 ，so the patient with NAION with comorbidity like diabetes, hypertension have a higher risk of ischemia stroke. Okay, so it's like 3.5 times higher than the patient without the NAION. And the stroke is the fourth leading cause of death in Taiwan. And in like 60 to 79 years old, they will have highest incidence. Okay, so the eye can see a lot of systemic disease even before the patient have the symptom. So usually that's why we call the eye is the window of the mind. Okay, and the eye tell me all your secrets. Okay, if we have time, I will share with you why patients somehow see we as the psychic. That's a very interesting story if I have time, okay? So because the highly relation of optic nerve stroke with the stroke, so it's for us, because the optic nerve stroke is not life-threatening, so it's really difficult for us to get the sample. So you cannot ask a patient like, okay, I'm going to pull out your eye and get some optic nerve tissue. That's impossible, okay? So we have to make a very good animal model. So our lab established a rat AIOL model. So it can investigate the RGC pathology and the ischemia injury. And the most beauty of this model is a similar pathology to the human and primate AION. So the red AI model, we use the photosensitized rose bangle. It's a dye it can activate using the laser, okay? And then it will cause a lot of reactive oxygen species accumulation and causing the photoembolism. Okay, we see some video, okay? 好的，动吗？怎么会这样？但是刚刚在电脑那边可以看呢。但为什么你那个电脑可以看，这边不能看？从哪个档案直接播？没有，我没有这个的档案，我就是，但是刚刚在你的电脑可以看呢。是这台电脑的问题吗？所以是。为什么在你的电脑可以播嘞？Okay, so very unfortunately we cannot see the video. Okay, so then let's the red eye. So we will just inject the rose bangle to the tail vein and using the laser, the argon laser. So we use the same laser for the patient too. Okay, not the same machine, but the same, not the same one, but the same similar machine. Okay, so we usually when you activate the disc, it will show up like a golden yellow spot. It means you successfully activate, okay? So after we have the good model, now we have to use these models to find out which one is the very ideal ocular neuroprotector. So it should have rescued the retinal ganglion cell from death. Okay, and also can decrease the inflammatory process. Just like you see the disc is really swelling and really inflammatory. Okay, so and also can preserve the visual function. So in our recent study, we used the one called P-selecting immunoglobulin G chimera. So that's for the mouse P-selectin and the fusion with the human IgG1 FC region. Okay, so this chimera can enhance the bioactivity. So we inject, because in other study we have found elevated platelet P-selectin level in numbers of vaso-occlusive disease such as like diabetes, atherosclerosis, stroke, and NAL. So we use this soluble chimera. It's competitively inhibit the P-selectin or P-selectin ligand and block the leukocyte immigrate into the injured region. So how do we know we preserve the retinal ganglion cell? So we use the retrograde labeling of the retinal ganglion cell. So we inject the dye called the Florogo into the superior colliculus. That's the site when the retinal ganglion cell form the first synapse in superior colliculus. So we inject the dye can retrograde label the retinal ganglion cell if the retinal ganglion cell is alive. Okay? So it will just show up like here. That's normal. That's the optic nerve injury. Okay? So you can see the decrease of the retinal ganglion cell number. So that's how we pour all the retina together. Okay, so we calculate the center and the mid-peripheral because the retinal ganglion cell have higher density in the center and toward the peripheral, the density will decrease. So as you can see here, so the P-selecting IgG chimera can actually protect the AIOL injury. Okay. And the next function, we see we already preserve the retinal ganglion cell, and we want to evaluate how the visual function perform. So we use the visual evoked potential. So this is a non-invasive tool to evaluate the function of the visual system. So like here, we have the light stimulus, and then you have give the wave. Then we have the first negative wave and the first positive wave. So we will calculate the amplitude. It reflects the number of functional optic nerve fiber. So that's when we perform for the patient, just have a reference recording electrode and the grounding electrode. That's the patient perform the VP. But for the rat, we have to put the electrode implant and screw into the skull. Okay. So that's how we record the VP. Okay. So as you can see, the P-selectin also successfully preserve the visual function. Okay, the tunnel, we can see the P-selectin also decrease the apoptosis. And okay, sorry. The ED1 is the marker for active macrophage and the microglia cell. So as you can see, they can decrease the inflammatory cell in the optic nerve. So we also use the other one like ocular coherence tomography. The beauty of this is we can use that in live cell, live animal. So it will show up like a histology image. So you don't have to sacrifice the animal. Okay? So now human patient use this for the retina image too. So we use that to see the optic nerve disc, is that swelling or not. and also use that to measure the retinal nerve fiber layer to see the thickness is normal or not. Okay, so as you can see here, so the P-selecting IgG chimera can reduce the edema and also preserve the retinal nerve fiber layer thickness. Okay, so we also done the transmission electron microscope. So it can use, as you can see here, we want to find out the microstructural pathogenesis. So as you can see here, when we do the AIO laser induction, it disrupts the endothelial cell. And you can see the red blood cell is all exposed outside. Okay, there's no intact like a capillary shape. So, but when you do the P-selectin IgG chimera intravitreal injection, you can see even the day one, you can see the shape of the endothelial cell, and the parasite is all intact. Okay? So it means the P-selectin IgG chimera can stabilize the blood-optic barrier in acute phase. So we also want to find out what kind of mechanism or signal transduction pathway the P-selectin IgG have the protective effect. So we found out, we looking for several survival signaling. So we found out it's involved in NL2 mediated protection effect in the retina. And it can activate the NRF2 pathway and the downstream like HO1 and NQO1 antioxidant enzyme. Okay, so that's the model for our neuroprotective effect of P-selectin IgG in AION. So for the treatment and prevention, because we found out that's a very important signal pathway. So in the future, we might have to use, they already use NRF2 activator in the clinical trial. So we can directly use this, maybe if we successfully using, find out the protective effect in this animal model, so we can maybe in the future we will soon can be used in clinical. So this strategy also can be used in the stroke because the optic nerve stroke is related to the stroke. So they found out that NRF2 also protective in like intracellular hemorrhage or capillary artery occlusion. So for the prevention, it's just like earlier Professor Sean mentioned, you have to keep healthy lifestyle to control the risk factor. And also we might help to develop some biomarker for early detection because early diagnosis, early treatment is always the gold standard. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for Dr. Huang about this very high-tech and molecular research about the human well-being. And then any comments or any questions from our audience you would like to share or want to ask questions? Anyone? Or an international student from the same department, Monica? Mema or Mahito, you want to ask question or comment? I see your eye blinking. Yeah.
Okay, maybe there are simple questions. So this disease is also important. How can we protect ourselves from this kind of disease?
Okay, so this kind of disease is because the results showed up from our TEM, transmission electron microscope, is have the disruption of the barrier. So it might cause because of a lot of oxidative stress. So that's why in the end I mentioned we have to keep a healthy lifestyle to avoid all the risk factor. And then you have to keep away from anything will causing you have diabetes, hypertension, hyperlipidemia. Okay, so and then you can have the beautiful eye and the beautiful mind. Okay.
In related to that, I want to add a question about nerve regeneration. Is it possible for eye nerve to regenerate if we lose it? Is that possible?
Yeah. That's a big question. That's a big question. That's a big question. Yeah, it's unlikely because the optic nerve, retinal ganglion cell, and the photoreceptor, the cell in the eye is all highly differentiated. So it will be really difficult for them to regenerate. Yeah. So if I can find out something that can be like optic nerve regeneration, I might get the Nobel Prize. Yeah.
Okay. And this morning we got from the populational health about SDG, and then our honorable speaker for our a recipient of the Pride. This talk about various about shared governance and about different issues, and then there's our local speaker. So may I ask our international guest, do you have any comments on this morning, or you want to add some comment on it? Especially the people, you want to add on that? Please, we do want to have some comments, maybe from our prize recipients. Sure, passion about SDGs. Okay, nice. Want to?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sarwa from Malaysia, so representing all my friends here. So yeah, it was wonderful to share from perspective of Taiwan research output from wetland to eye problem and moving on from Philippines and Kenya. It was wonderful. Thank you so much for giving the platform for us to interact and exchange research and ideas. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for keep SDGs in mind. Even though we are not part of the WHO, but we still need to consistent with the global goal initiative about SDG. And thank you for wonderful speaker to give us an opportunity for our future scientists to realize the SDG goals for them, because we don't think we have enough education burden in SDG development. And I'm not sure that's true or not in your country, but if we need to have a good partnership, then we need to work on together to get our future generation to be more familiar with SDG and to save our earth and also to make life sustainably living in this beautiful earth. And thank you so much for everybody. Give us yourself a real applause. And then we'll try to explain that in Chinese for a moment. 我相信各位，这应该是你第一次听到 SDGs。如果你上了 APP， 你会发现 APP 是简体字，因为目前我们真的不是 WHO 上面的国家，可是这并不影响我们身为世界公民、地球公民的影响力。未来的话，也希望我们的未来的 generation 会对 WHO 所有的内容，包含了永续经营、永续发展。如果今天你自诩是地球公民，你就要对永续发展的17个目标有很重要的了解，因为这会影响到我们世世代代的子孙可不可以在地球上生存，怎么样平衡发展以环境保护，怎么样平衡消费跟制造，怎么样平衡每一个生物在地球上共同的权利。好，那我觉得目前看起来我们的课本是没有这一块，对吧？是不是？可是你们都是这么聪明的人呢，你们应该可以用 World Wide Web 去找到任何跟地球接轨的讯息。所以也祝福各位 scientist， 未来这堂课会是你的第一堂，可是不是最后一堂，给自己一个掌声。Thank you so much.